Hey Disney Cruisers, and welcome back to the DCL community where we are here to help you plan, prepare for, and get excited about those Disney cruises. You guys know me, I'm Rebecca. I am your admin and host, and today we are so excited to be talking about a pretty well requested topic of like, okay, I'm going to all these great places, but what do I actually do there? We are talking all things excursions. Disney actually has a different name for them, but I'm so excited to be talking with the queen of excursions, whether through Disney Cruise Line or Adventures by Disney, Karen Shelton. Karen, do you want to introduce yourself as people are coming in?
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. I am Karen Shelton. I am the owner of My Path Unwinding Travel. We are a full service travel agency. Disney Destinations is really at the heart of our entire team. We are an authorized Disney vacation planner. All of us on our team have been on many Disney Cruise Line sailings and of all different types of itineraries, and have experienced all different ways of experiencing the ports, which is part of why we cruise, right?
Yes.
We should probably, we should have planned a poll because it's really interesting. I feel like there's some people that don't care where the ship takes them. And then there's
Yeah.
some people that really care.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Everybody who's watching right now, let us know if you chose your vacation, your Disney cruise vacation because of where it's going, or if all you wanted was the timing and it worked out with your schedule off.
Right.
Because I think for me, I don't care. I just want to be on board, you
And
know?
for me, a lot of the time it's the same way. Like I feel like, especially with most of the Caribbean and Bahamas sailings, it's like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Just get me on the ship and let me
Yes.
unplug and look at that ocean and feel the sea breeze and have that amazing service. And it doesn't really matter like where it happens to take me.
Oh, it's so true. Well, if you guys have any questions, put those in the comments and we will do our best to get to all of them. But if you have any questions or need any help planning your Disney cruise vacation, please reach out to Karen and her team. Their planning services are totally free for you to use. And I will go ahead and put a link in the comments for everybody now. But we're going to go ahead and get this guy up on screen. And Karen, if you want to take it away.
Awesome. So I always like to have just a little bit of guidance and guidelines, a visual presentation as we talk. But of course, for anybody out there, please feel free to ask questions, chime in. We'll try to anticipate some of the questions that you all might have. But, as we were just saying, while a lot of the times you might not care where a Disney cruise takes you, it's going to take you somewhere.
Yeah.
Back in the day, there used to be what were called cruises to nowhere. And those were typically like a 2-night, maybe even a 3-night sailing. A lot of times those were used to just fill in gaps on a schedule for a cruise line, or they are or were an opportunity for like a new ship, kind of like a preview sailing.
Oh,
I
wow.
think there's been some changes like in the laws and regulations for cruises that have no longer allow that from happening. So every cruise is going to take you somewhere.
Yeah.
And so, when you think about a Disney cruise, because it's taking you somewhere, most of the time people want to be able to plan for what am I going to do when I'm in port? And how do I go about doing that? So we are here to talk all about that today.
Yes. And I see we already have some great questions about your favorite ship and favorite excursions and just questions in general. I think a lot of the tips that Karen's going to have on how to choose the best excursion for you and your family, you're probably going to get some overlap there with how to choose the best ship too. It depends.
It really does. And I see somebody mentioned that they chose Eastern Caribbean for the extra sea day. And I mean, I have to say, I'm very partial to that myself.
Yeah.
I'm partial to whatever itinerary has more days at sea because there's just nothing more that I like than staring out at the ocean and feeling that breeze. But
Yes.
And, there's many folks that even choose to stay on the ship in certain ports. But I also do love those Eastern Caribbean ports. They're beautiful. So, there's always lots of options.
Yes, agreed.
So, I think one of the first questions is, first of all, the standard lingo for a cruise is a shore excursion. So when you're stopped at a port and you're going on some kind of structured activity, that's called a shore excursion. But Disney, being Disney, has
Yeah.
its own language a little bit, and they call shore excursions port adventures. So it gives you more of that voyage feeling, gets
Yes.
you more excited. It's not just an excursion or an outing, it is an adventure. Just side note, we've talked about Virgin Voyages, and they also have their own term. They call them shore things. So
Oh,
no kidding,
fun.
they're on a shore thing. But one of the questions that we have is, how do we even know what is available on a Disney cruise? Because as you'll see in a minute, if you have booked, as most people do, a year or more out, you won't be able to log into your account and see the excursions or port adventures that are available for your cruise. But there is a place to find them, actually, and that's I posted this link here. It's the Disney Cruise Line link, and if you just Google Disney Cruise Line Port Adventures, this link will show up eventually. And this link has all the available adventures in every port for the entire fleet, for every sailing. And you can sort by the destination, whether it be the Bahamas, the Caribbean, the Europe, the transatlantic, Hawaii, all of them. They're all in there. Now, they are pretty much up to date. I will say that as we came through COVID, there
Mhm.
have definitely been some changes in what has been offered. And that is because, sadly, some of the partners in the destinations are no longer in business. They weren't able to, withstand all the challenges that COVID and the lack of cruise traffic presented.
Yeah.
So Disney had to, create some new partnerships and work on some new options. So those of you who have cruised over the years might see that some of the options have changed or are no longer there. For the most part, this is going to be everything that's offered on that website, but it's possible that not everything that you see is going to be offered on your cruise. But
Yeah.
it's unlikely that something that you don't see will pop up later. This is probably the kind of grouping of port adventures that they'll have.
Yes. This is the max options.
So this is a good way to look once you've booked or even before you've booked, because some people say, well, how do I know what I'm going to do? And you can check this link out and kind of see what are the general options that might be available. Like if you're going to the Bahamas or going to the Caribbean or Europe or whatever, you can get an idea of some of the activities that are being planned for.
Yeah, and I know that a lot of times, we'll get the question of budget. How much money should I plan to spend on a Disney cruise? So is that something that you can kind of help your clients with? Of they know that they definitely want to go snorkeling or they definitely want to see the dolphins. So how does that work into their overall cruise package?
So that is a really good question. Again, by looking at this link, we can get an idea of how much the port adventures will cost,
Mhm.
as an estimate. Because if you look now and you don't get to book them for a year from now, the price could change.
Yeah.
But it can give you an estimate as to how to budget. And we'll talk in a minute about when you need to pay for port adventures.
Yes.
But definitely we can look at, kind of planning out the big picture, because, a cruise, the price of the cruise includes so much. There's lots out there about everything that's included on a Disney cruise, but
Yeah.
port adventures are not included. Side note, always have to bring this up. unless you do an Adventures by Disney river cruise, or expedition cruise, then all of your excursions are included.
Yes. And if you want to know more about those, Karen's your girl. She knows it like the back of her hand.
And we did a live video about that.
Yes.
So we can proceed to talk a little bit more about when can you book your port adventures. So first of all, in order to book your port adventures, you have to have a cruise booked.
That helps.
And you have to be paid in full. And so for concierge guests, they have a special kind of treatment. And we also have done a live together, Rebecca, about concierge. And this is one of the really great benefits of being in a concierge stateroom is the priority to plan and secure all of your cruise activities, whether it be port adventures or adult dining or spa, those kinds of things. We work with a lot of clients who choose to pay that extra for concierge in part because of that priority. So many folks that go to Castaway Cay really want a cabana. A cabana on Castaway Cay is probably the most sought after port adventure. It is booked like a port adventure, even though it is a cabana, not an active tour.
Yeah.
But so if you have a concierge stateroom on any of the ships, once you're paid in full, you can submit your requests to concierge or your travel advisor can do so. That's one of the benefits of what we do for our concierge clients is we calculate that date, make sure it gets sent out at midnight on the dot, 130 days prior to your departure. And that is ahead of every other category of cruiser. So you get to have that priority, and the concierge team at the shoreside guest services, do their magic, and they put all of your requests, hopefully you'll get all of them, into your cruise account. And at 123 days, a week later, you'll be able to log in and see everything. And then you'd be able to modify or add things yourself online at 123 days. So Pearl, which is the newest category of Castaway Club membership, they get to get online. Now, everybody else has to do it online. They cannot do this through an email. They can do it online at 123 days. So where it used to be the earliest any cruiser could do this outside of concierge was 120, they gave those Pearl members a little bit of a heads up. And if we have any Pearl members listening, give us a shout. Congratulations on being so dedicated. Yes. I know there's some folks that are really trying hard to add some more cruises.
I know. I'm like, eventually I'll get there.
So, and then Platinum is 120 days as usual, and the other categories are listed here. If you have never sailed with Disney before, and this means that you have never completed a cruise, having multiple reservations doesn't count. You have to have completed the cruise to get to silver level or higher. Then you'll be at 75 days. So you see there's a good, 55-day gap between new cruisers and concierge cruisers. And in between all that time, everybody gets to log on and book. So if you're a new cruiser, you may not get your first choice. Very unlikely to get a cabana unless you jump up and get a concierge stateroom.
And if I'm a new cruiser, this is my first Disney cruise, I'm so excited, but I'm sailing with my friends or my in-laws who are silver or gold. Can they book stuff for me when their window opens up?
That is such a great question. Only if they are in the same stateroom with you can they do that. So if you are not concierge, it goes by the highest Castaway Club membership in your stateroom. And even if you're linked, you cannot book for the other folks until their level opens. The exception is for concierge. So if you are not in concierge, but you are sailing with someone that is, they can request shared activities for you on your behalf. So
Ooh.
if Rebecca, if you were in concierge and I am not, you would be able to tell the concierge team, hey, the Sheltons and I want to go do the baths in Tortola. We want to do that excursion, and they will book it for both of us.
Wow.
Our reservations are linked and we're traveling together. It doesn't matter if I've never cruised before or not. It just, as long as you're sailing with somebody in concierge, they can do that for you. They can also do Palo dining, whatever, but it has to be a shared reservation. You can't say, well, Karen actually wants to do a beach break and I want to do the city tour. So if we're not doing it together, concierge cannot book it for the non-concierge person. Does that make sense?
Yes, that absolutely does. Oh, those concierge perks, they just keep coming up.
They do. They do. It's, and it's rare for, I would say, for folks in concierge to be traveling with folks that are not. It varies, but because there are some things that are exclusive to the concierge guests on board. But if that does happen, if you have, family or friends, that is one benefit to take, advantage of that concierge, amenity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So these are the times that you can book the port adventures. Let's talk about payment. So one of the huge advantages of Disney Cruise Line over every other cruise line is that they don't make you pay for your shore excursion beforehand. So if you are on Royal Caribbean or Virgin or Norwegian or any of them, you have to pay when you book. And it
Ooh.
might still be refundable. It usually is up to a certain point, but you still have to put, that money out there to solidify it, to confirm it. Now, some people might think that Disney should do that because it might prevent people from hoarding activities that they're not going to actually use. Like
Yeah.
if people had to actually pay for the cabana at the time, would there be fewer? I think for cabanas, there still would be just as many cabanas available or
Yeah.
not available. Everybody would still book them. But it might be true for some other things that it might help with some of the demand if people had to pay. But Disney has chosen the policy of they do not take your money for your port adventures until you're on board. So it goes on your cruise account when you are sailing, and that is paid with your credit card on file or with gift cards that you can apply. But you cannot actually prepay if you wanted to for your port adventure booked through Disney Cruise Line.
Wow.
So, I'm going to see if my earbuds are.
Yeah. And while those are loading up, I see this question of when's the cheapest time to book and how often are new cruises released? The cheapest time is almost always going to be as far out as possible because Disney does price based on supply and demand. So as the ship fills up and the rooms go down, the price is going to go up too. You might see some guarantee rates that become available or maybe a Florida resident discount, but those are never guaranteed. And at that point, you're risking your vacation time. So I would definitely reach out to Karen, work together with her on what your budget is. And they release cruises. I mean, the timing of them has been weird in the last, probably since COVID. But the next round of cruises hopefully should be released September, October, maybe.
Well, I think the next round of cruising to be released is very likely going to be the Disney Treasure.
I keep forgetting about her. She's throwing a monkey wrench into plans.
And yes, so that I believe we may know about it on August 30th when they have the big virtual reveal of the Disney Treasure.
Yes.
And hopefully at that time we'll know when they're going to open bookings. But I am keeping my fingers crossed that it could be soon after that reveal that they open bookings for the new ship. So what that means is it's probably going to be a a few more months. I'm guessing more like November or December, which is similar to how it was last year for
Got it.
the next release of the itineraries, which will be January through approximately May of 2025. So right now we can book through all of 2024. We can book a smattering of a couple of unique itineraries in early 2025, but the next release is probably going to be, for the whole fleet, a few months out.
Yeah. And my favorite part about working with a travel agent is I can say, hey, Karen, these are the dates we want. This is the itinerary that we have in mind, Eastern Caribbean. We don't care where it goes. Can you go ahead and book this for us? And she can take care of that for you, even without knowing exactly what's right. She'll confirm with you beforehand, but she can take.
And what's really nice about Disney is they do give us a few days lead time, and we collect our, the requests that we have for quotes and for reservations. And in fact, we are able to give estimates on pricing as early as, the day that it opens. The pricing could change. It changes from, the opening day to, sometimes the next day or the day after. Prices can go up. But if you are, let's say, a silver cruiser or a new cruiser that can't book until a few days after it opens, we can still get you an estimate of pricing almost immediately. Yeah. So there's a good question here about the cost of the excursion. You may have to look online in that link that I posted earlier on the Port Ventures link to see the actual cost, or check on the computer and see if you can see it that way. The app sometimes doesn't show the same information. Otherwise, check with your travel advisor or call Disney Cruise Line to confirm the exact cost of what you have booked. And just know if you say, you know what, I forgot that it was actually $250 a person for whatever excursion you just booked.
It happens.
And you don't, you decided, well, I'd rather spend my money elsewhere. You can cancel your port adventures up to 3 days prior to sailing. At that time, basically everything online kind of shuts down and you can't really do anything else. Sometimes they'll make an exception and work with you on board if you really have to make a change, but I wouldn't count on it. I would count on just knowing that everything that's on your reservation 3 days prior will be set. You'll be charged for it. You have your spot, you'll go. If you have chosen what is called a signature port adventure, which they have a few of now, which are like these kind of higher end special ones, like chartering a yacht in Grand Cayman. There's a lot of boat ones like that where you have like a private sail just for your group, or a private vehicle. Sometimes in many ports, you can just go through Disney Cruise Line and have a private vehicle and driver to take you anywhere you want to go. Those are non-refundable. They're booked in a different way and generally cannot be changed.
Yes. And if I didn't get what I wanted during the booking process because somebody else has taken it all, should I still go to guest services and try and get on a wait list in case somebody does cancel last minute?
Absolutely. So there's a couple things you should do. You should check online periodically because people do change, especially know that final payment dates and the date that you can book your port adventures might differ. So it could be that, let's say, a Pearl cruiser, they can book their port adventures 123 days out, or let's say Apollo. But the cruise itself, the final payment might not be due till, let's say, 90 days out. So maybe in that 40 days, they change their mind and cancel the cruise or move it. And so I would kind of look every so often and check around different final payment dates and especially your final payment date for what you have, and make sure that nothing else has popped up. If you're in concierge, they usually, again, hopefully you have booked something ahead of time. Let's say you change your mind and say, oh, I forgot that I really want to do that dolphin swim in Grand Cayman. And you look online and it's sold out. If you're concierge, they usually can work with the port adventure team to try to find you availability or get you on a wait list. For other folks, there really isn't a wait list, but you can keep checking or check on board.
Yeah, I was gonna say that app, it'll update in real time. So if you're on your ship, you might see some things pop up that weren't there before.
That is very, very true. But we have an alternative. And this is kind of one of those, secrets that Disney Cruise Line won't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
And, reason number 223 to book with a travel professional that is full service to book beyond just Disney products. There are definitely trustworthy shore excursion companies that you can feel confident and comfortable in booking. And we work with a couple of, specific ones depending on the destination that we partner with, that we trust, that we know will guarantee that you will have a good experience and, most importantly, guarantee your return to the ship. That is one of the most important things. You say, well, you shouldn't ever go outside the cruise line because you might miss the boat. Well, there are some independent companies, that might just, hang out outside the port and put you in a taxi and, arrange to take you somewhere. That's not what I'm talking about. Those could be questionable in terms of missing your return if you're in a place where there's traffic and you haven't planned. But these are actual companies that do guarantee that their providers will make sure you get back to your ship. Otherwise, there's all kinds of, ways that they make sure that you're taken care of, returned to the ship, compensated, and all of that. But it has never, ever happened because it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So, one of the great advantages of working with a third party shore excursion company is that you can book anytime you want. You don't have to wait till 75, 90, 123 days, whatever it is for your Castaway Club level. I can see excursions all the way through whatever cruise Disney has published out there right now. There is published shore excursions that can be booked now. So a year or a year and a half out, we can book and choose excursions for you. So, if you want something really specific or just want to know that it's done, you can book now. They also have different options than Disney Cruise Line. So it might be worth looking if you're not inspired by the same old in Nassau, or want to do a little something different when you're in Mexico, or especially in Europe. There are going to be so many different options to consider. One of the other things is a lot of times these are smaller groups than what you'll get through a port adventure with Disney. You can also have the option to have a private just for your family group or your friends. You may save money. I was recently comparing some similar type adventures, excursions and port adventures, and they were either exactly the same amount, or up to $20 or more less per person, which can add up depending on the excursion.
Wow.
Now, the difference is for these, you do generally have to pay in advance, but you can cancel 14 days prior. And again, if you're working with a reliable company, you talk to your travel advisor about this, that they will say, okay, if your ship doesn't make it into port because there's wind or mechanical issues or whatever, they will go ahead and agree to refund you. So there's also travel insurance you can take out to be protected for, some kind of, let's say your ship docks in the port, but you're sick.
Yeah.
Go. So, the good companies will work with you on those kinds of things. One of the other things that I really like about working with companies outside of the cruise line is, for those of you who have sailed, that Disney will tell you, okay, for those of you going on this port adventure, it's time to meet in the D lounge at, they say it's a 9:00 adventure. And so they'll tell you to meet in the D lounge at like 8:45. And then you have to check into the D lounge, give your name, they give you a sticker, or it could be the Walt Disney Theater or somewhere on the ship. And you have to wait for your entire group to check in. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's that location might have 3 or 4 port adventurers checking in, and everybody's getting a different sticker, whether it be Mickey or Rapunzel or whatever. And then everybody sits and everybody waits, and then they call your group, and then you get off the ship as a group, and then you have to wait again. That's a little rough sometimes. It's a lot of waiting. So a 9 o'clock shore excursion, you might really not get going until 9:30.
Yeah.
The shore excursions, you just get off the ship, you just walk off the ship, and they tell you where to meet. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's right at the port, sometimes it's nearby. And so I really like that as an option.
And what if I kind of want I don't necessarily want to book something ahead. I want to be a little bit spontaneous. There's always a bunch of vendors right when I get off the ship who all have, they'll have the turtle farm, or they'll have swimming with dolphins. Can I go with one of them?
You do so definitely at your own risk. It's unless you really have prearranged with either, Disney Cruise Line or with a trusted company ahead of time, or you really have a personal recommendation to look out for somebody. I would just say you do so very much so at your own risk. I
Mhm.
feel like the best, the most comfortable option that I would have for that is if you just want to go to the beach. So if you're in Grand Cayman and you just want to take a taxi over to the beach, and a lot of times you can tell the taxi driver, come pick me up at this time because they want to have that return fare. Give yourself a lot of time to get back.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. But otherwise, you have to have a sense of adventure, and know that it might not be the vehicle quality or the excursion quality that you expect, and you might have issues in terms of timing.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I have some family that's decided last minute that they wanted to go snorkeling or they wanted to go parasailing. So they have gone with vendors that you meet right off the ship. And typically they weren't taken all that far, but that definitely comes with its own risks. So just know what you're getting into.
Right. And we receive a great question here from Sheldon about working with port adventures for folks with special needs or accessibility issues. And if your travel advisor can't help, or maybe you book direct with Disney Cruise Line, as I said at the beginning, and they're not going to tell you about these options. Yes, these companies really, it does not necessarily matter who you booked with. Again, I'd like for you to use your travel advisor. I always, encourage you to. Otherwise, you can reach out to a different travel advisor to get that information. And definitely we can sort through which ones are accessible, what they can and can't do, because sometimes, let's say you have a scooter or a motorized wheelchair. Depending on where you're going, and their vehicle capacity, they may say they're accessible, but it may really only be if you can transfer out of your chair or if you have a folding chair. So, there's definitely some things to know and to keep in mind, and to be able to, have somebody that can talk it through.
Yes.
So we have, come up on covered so much in 30 minutes.
I know.
I'm looking at the questions.
Yeah. I was going to say some other questions that I know that come up all the time is if I do a Disney excursion and we don't get to the port because of bad weather or mechanical issues, like you were saying, is that automatically refunded to my account?
Correct, it is. So typically what happens when you're on board is you'll see that, within the first day or two, your onboard account will show the charges for all of your port adventures. But if clearly something happens, like, I feel like it's pretty common for parasailing at Castaway Cay to get
Yeah.
canceled.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks, but wind conditions at Castaway often cancel that. So, that would automatically get refunded. So, Disney, of course, is, customer service is key, and they're definitely fair about that.
Awesome. And we always seem to get questions about excursions for under 3. You know, people want to travel with their little ones, but it seems like Disney's cutoff is usually around 3. So can you still bring your under 3 with you, or is there a way to find excursions or port adventures
So
for
it
the little?
really depends, and that can be tricky because if you're logged into your Disney Cruise Line account and you have children on your account, it will show you all the adventures, all the port adventures, and you have to kind of log in and click on the actual adventure, and then it'll show you that you can't select your child because they're too young.
Yeah.
So that's why it's good to kind of look at that page that I posted before. And when this is done, I'll post that link in the comments in the Facebook group for you. Um,
Awesome.
but to take a look at that, I wish that page let you sort or select by age. It actually does let you select by accessibility, but it doesn't, and destination, but not by age. So again, that could be a reason to look at options outside of Disney because many of them might have similar excursions with different age requirements. So, that's really important. Or also keep in mind that sometimes, like activities like in the Bahamas that have a dolphin swim, there might be an option to actually swim with the dolphins that you might have to be, let's say, 7. I can't remember the exact age. And then there might be an option for like 3 to 7-year-olds to do more of what they call like an interaction where you're sitting at the side and like get to still like pet and play with the dolphins from the side with a parent. And then there might be just like an observer where you still get to come, but you aren't actually doing the activity. So sometimes you have to kind of dive in a little deeper to see that you can bring your child. It's just going to be a different type of ticket.
Yeah. And that's another great reason to have a travel agent like Karen because she can help you navigate all of that. As much as we love Disney, their site isn't always the most user friendly. So, understatement of the century, right? And
So
then
true.
another question for you. Do you actually need an excursion at every port?
Absolutely not. It really depends on you and your personality. I have some clients and friends who just feel like they're going to, maybe they're new to cruising and very nervous about being on a ship
Yeah.
and just feel like they have to put their feet on dry land. And so, in that case, if you're new to cruising and new to travel, I would recommend having an excursion in every port except Castaway Cay
Yeah.
and Lighthouse Point coming up next year, which is Disney's new beach destination, because that is that's getting off the ship and staying in the Disney Cruise Line bubble. The beach is run by Disney Cruise Line. The food is included. Your bar tab will work with your charge card to the ship. Everything gets charged to your account. If you want to shop, you can do that. So you don't need, for sure, do not need a port adventure on Castaway Cay. The chairs and umbrellas are included. The towels are there for you. So that's an easy one. But if a lot of folks choose to stay on board in Nassau because they feel like the options aren't that exciting. They usually, if you're in Nassau, it's because you're only on a 3 or 4 night cruise anyway, and you want to take advantage of everything on board. By all means, stay on the ship. Nobody's going to kick you off. There's going to be plenty to do still on board the ships, the ship's pools. There will be, maybe not as much entertainment during the day as there would be on a sea day, but there'll still be a movie playing. The pools will be going. There'll be plenty to eat.
Yeah.
There might be a spa special on a port day. So there's still plenty to do.
Yes.
So really, I would say it's not necessary. Think about if you are in a port and just think, I'm just going to get off and walk around. Just make sure you've done your research because some ports are really not what they seem. So for example, Disney might say that you're going to Rome, but that port of Civitavecchia could be like an hour and a half away from Rome, and there's
Yeah.
really nothing you want to do right there at the port. So you just have to do your research.
Yes, yes. And same with safety concerns. You always want to have some street smarts and not just go walking around with no game plan. Some ports like Grand Cayman, no problem, go to the beach in a taxi by yourself. So just some things to keep in mind. And I know you mentioned Lighthouse Point, and people are always asking how to save money on Disney cruises. Do you have any of the group rate? Aren't you doing a group cruise?
Thank you for asking. Yes, we have 2 group cruises next summer. Both go to Lighthouse Point. They are on the Disney Magic out of Fort Lauderdale. I
I
have to
know.
get used to saying that because the Magic is moving from Miami. Disney Cruise
Yeah.
Line is moving to Fort Lauderdale. We have a 3-night option in June that just goes to Lighthouse Point, and then we have a 5-night option that is a 2-flavor double dip. So instead of the double dip going to Castaway Cay twice, this one is mixing it up. You get to go to both of Disney's destinations, Lighthouse Point and Castaway Cay, to do a side-by-side comparison. So that 3-night is with our friends over at the DCL Duo. They've been on your show. I will be on that one.
Yeah.
So we do have just a few staterooms left, and those are pricing out as better than what you can book direct. The 5-night is with one of our amazing teammates, Angie Gargaro, who was a member of the Plan Disney panel as their Disney Cruise Line specialist. Some people know it as the Disney Parks Moms panel. But Angie is now a travel advisor with us, with My Path Unwinding, and she is bringing together a bunch of alumni from the Plan Disney team to join. It is, I have to say, it's not sponsored by Plan Disney. It's just a bunch of them traveling together, and we're inviting any and all of you to join them. And we do also still have some great rates on that in most categories, including a couple of concierge left.
Oh.
So,
And I didn't know until we did our live event about group rates. I didn't know that Disney even had group rates, and that's such a great way to save money, especially if you're a first-time cruiser and you don't have a placeholder. So reach out to Karen and get pricing for those, because that's an easy way to kind of tack onto something existing and take advantage of those savings.
Absolutely. And they're both going to be such fun groups. If you don't have to interact with anybody in the group.
Yeah.
But there will be a couple special events and some extra swag for being part of it. And we're really excited. So
Awesome. Last question for you before we let you go. I know we've kept you long today, but if I am just so overwhelmed with the number of options, how do I even choose a port adventure? How do I know it's going to be best for me?
I think that you really have to sit down and think about, who's in your family. What is the timing? Because there's some port adventures that just last like 2 to 3 hours, and some that could be really long days. Look at what's involved, what your family's going to be interested in, because, nobody really wants, unhappy family members.
Yeah. A cranky, hungry toddler is always the worst.
Right. And, talk to your travel advisor. The group can be a good way to get feedback, although keep in mind that, every person on the group has a different family situation. So what they loved might not be the right match for you.
Yes.
But just take it all into consideration, the timing, the cost, the energy involved, the activity level. If it's something, you might not want to do if you're on a Caribbean cruise. We usually like to do like one snorkeling activity, even though we could snorkel in every port. We might just not want to do that every day. So just try to balance out the different types of activities, and just know that, give yourself some grace that you don't have to do it all, because you're going to go back and cruise again.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Easily be addicted. My favorite addiction is cruising.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you all for joining us. There is the link to Karen's page on the DCL community site. Again, her planning services are totally free. And as you guys can see, she has a depth of knowledge on a variety of ports and port adventures. So reach out to her, let her help you plan that perfect Disney cruise for your family. Karen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we will see all of you on board. Bye all.
Thank you.